Welcome to the Neverworld podcast, where together we explore the strange and unusual. Every journey starts with the first step into the unknown.
Today's podcast episode is Eric von Däniken's Chariots of the Gods. Hey, Dave.
What's going on, man?
Hey, I want to send a shout out and a welcome to everybody for picking us up on our second episode of Neverworld podcast. And today, Dave and I would like to just talk about one of the influences in our life as far as the way that's helped shape beliefs or the way we look at things has been von Däniken's Chariot of the Gods. And this is something that you told me, Dave, that you read as a teenager, was it?
Yeah, well, I was probably about 10 years old when I had first heard about this book. Probably came across one of my older brother, probably had read it, set it down. I picked it up, read it. And I read it once when I was probably about 10 was the first time. I was a teenager. I read it again. I knew about the book, had the book, lost the book, went and bought the book and reread it. And I remember thinking to myself as a kid, this is some very interesting stuff. This is neat. These are questions that I had as a kid, and most people grow out of them. Most people stop wondering why or wondering how. And when you stop wondering how, I think you stop growing. But that's just my personal way that it is in my head. I do want to say one thing about Chariots of the Gods and Eric von Däniken. This is a guy, when he wrote this book, had the archaeological folks of the time and all the scientists of the day just ignored him, this book would have been a throwaway. Yeah. Nobody would have talked about it. The problem is they all attacked him. And when you're defending your belief without any proof, that makes you powerful. At least the person who's being attacked, you're giving all that power to that person. Eric von Däniken only asked one question. And the question was, were there ancient aliens that visited man and helped us evolve? It's a pretty simple question, really. I mean, it's a big question. But it is a question that when you look at the pyramids, when you look at places like, I don't know how to pronounce the word.
It is hard to pronounce some of the South American, Central American.
Yeah, some of the South American words are very hard for me to pronounce. Techo. Yeah. Here's another one. Kionajek. I don't even, it's an Assyrian king had built this place. The epics of Gilgamesh. He just questioned like when the flood happened. And now the interesting thing about like the ancient flood myth, people know a flood happened. There is proof around the world that a huge flood happened. Nobody knows how, nobody knows why, but every major religion, Western and Eastern, has a flood myth.
Yes,
they do. They all follows the same basic story of Noah in the Christian religion. They all had somebody who built a big ship, built a big ark, saved a bunch of animals, saved their family, and moved on. And all he is asking is, how did this happen? Where did this come from?
Well, let me. I want to jump in on this because it's illustrative of part of my own journey, because I know von Däniken came upon asking these questions because he started studying religions. Comparative religions and started to see similarities and started to question. The same thing happened similar to me when I started reading mythology, which is just another word for a religion that people aren't following. Right. So when I read the Greek mythos and saw that Zeus himself was so disgusted with the people, he flooded the planet. I was like, I stopped for a second. It's like, where have I heard this? And so that kind of question pops up and you start digging and you find, wait, Gilgamesh, flood? What? And it just keeps going and you're seeing the similarities. And how can you not question that? I mean, that's just the main thing.
The Assyrian, you were just talked about Gilgamesh, and I mentioned Gilgamesh also, but the Assyrian legend is I want to be able to pronounce this guy's name, but I'm not going to be able to because I'm terrible with names, quite honestly.
We will get better, folks.
Yeah,
we need a translator.
When we say we will get better, what do you mean we?
I don't know. Maybe one day. Stay tuned when Dave mispronounces yet another name.
He had brought up in the book. I'm not sure what publication this is, but it's around page 45, chapter 5. A sensational find was made in the hill of Kuyunjik, Kuyunjik. Don't know how to pronounce it, folks. I'm sorry. Around the turn of the century, it was a heroic epic of great expressive power engraved on 12 clay tablets, and it belonged to the library of the Assyrian king. Here we go again. Ashurbanipal.
Yeah, that's fine. We
Ashurbanipal.
will put show notes up on our website,
yes,
so you
please.
will be able to see the names that we are butchering and places that.
The epic was written by Akadim. Later, a second copy was found that goes back to the king Hammurabi. Now, this is basically, it's older than the Gilgamesh story, but it runs parallel. It's the same story, the same flood myth.
Yeah.
And this is older than the story of Noah. And it goes the same flood myth. The world got flooded. Somebody saved it. And this is thousands of years before the myth of Noah. I mean, everybody knows it happened. They just don't know why. They don't know when exactly. And that's the big problem, I think.
Yeah.
Is like he's all he's asking is, okay, this happened, but where, when, how? Who right. actually built this big boat? And did they get help? You know?
Yeah. Well, so and when you see something like this, like the flood myth, the story of it coming from so many different parts of the world, all pointing to, just a long time ago,
right.
Of the earth, the people being wiped out from a flood, and all of them have this same type of story. Folks, when there's smoke, there's fire. Something happened. Somebody had a boat. There was a flood. Now we may never know the actual pieces.
The names have changed. The people are the same.
Yes. We how many reboots did they have of Noah's flood? Damn it. Right. They're rebooting the flood again.
Exactly.
This time they're casting Assyrians. But
but the funny thing is you fast forward. Let's fast forward 100 million years or however many years it has been since the flood myth.
Right.
You have an end of time myth, an end of the world myth. The good gods fight the bad gods. Demons are fighting the angels.
Yeah.
The Norse gods are fighting the giants. They're all basically the same. It's basically good versus evil. Evil always loses.
You have Armageddon, Ragnarok. Yeah, it's all
they all lose. The bad guys always lose. I mean, I think it's just the nature of the universe. It's like, at least in this universe, it seems to be eventually, even though the bad guys seem to always be winning, good guys always win. Yeah. But in that, if you look, the same basic thing happens. Good versus evil. Evil loses, good triumphs. In the Norse mythology especially, they have where everything's dead, everything's frozen over. And when everything starts to thaw, you have the people, the man and woman, I forgot their names, that's basically a new Adam and Eve coming out, going out, doing, restarting everything. And that's like that in the Christian religion. It's like that, I believe, in the Hebrew religion, where the Jews take over. That's the meek shall inherit the earth. They get earth. That's their heaven, for lack of a better term. The Muslim religion, I'm not sure how that works out. I think it's very close to the way.
I think it's very similar. It's been a while since I read the Quran, but I do remember it's like, wow, more similarities.
It's all good versus evil, and you sit there and think, why are you guys even fighting then? Yeah, seriously, you guys have just changed the names. The actors are the same.
Yeah.
So, but that's kind of the sort of thing that Eric von Daniken talks about in the book. Like, there's something bigger here. There's something that if you, honest to God, if you look at the pyramids, he brings it up. The pyramids, these rocks are so big. I live in a fairly small house, but it's a good size house. But if you have a stone the size of my house and you're going to try and roll it uphill, I don't care how many people you got, you're not rolling this thing uphill. They did it. I mean, somebody built those things. Somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Who and when? His big
and what
question
kind of help had they had?
And the question that he asked again is exactly how old are these things? And people get mad about it. He's just asking a question. And I feel like the more he got attacked, the more popular his views got, because people like me start looking around and go, well, why are you so mad? All he's doing is literally asking how this got built.
If you think he's foolish,
sorry.
If you think he's full of crap, then walk away. Don't say anything.
Yeah.
And why give him the power? But yet they do, and it makes you wonder, what are you so afraid of, and why? Because listen, I have problems with the argument of let's keep everything secret from people because they won't know how to handle it. No, I think the people in power are the ones who don't want the truth to come out, because once it does, we don't. Yeah, I mean, so they lose their hold. They
lose their power.
So it's just frustrating. It's like, I don't even know where I was going with that, but
no, but it's like when you go to Easter Island, the great heads on Easter Island. And I remember for years watching and reading and them saying that the natives were wiped out by the colonizers, and my God, they were brutal. And when they went to the islands, they treated those poor islanders like hell. I mean, they weren't nice to them. Whoever took those islands was never nice to these poor people. And they always say, oh, there's nobody to ask about the stories. The ancient stories are gone. A few years ago, I was watching a documentary on Easter Island about the heads being all pointed inward toward the island instead of outward. And they said, well, nobody knows the answer to this. And the presenter, the guy who was actually behind the whole thing, went, so we went to the islanders and asked them. And I was like, wait, what do you mean the islanders?
Yeah,
turns out these people weren't extinct. They were still on the freaking island. They were on the other side of a little mountain range. It was like I guess some kind of little hillock that they all lived over there. It's like, well, wait a minute. I thought they all died. History's not telling you everything, folks. They're not telling you the truth about anything. For 45 freaking years, I thought everybody on Easter Island was dead. I thought there was no natives left. They showed these guys carving stuff, making stones, and doing stuff for the tourists that are coming in now. And I'm like, well, where did these people come from? Well, you talk to the old people and they're like, yeah, my grandfather, my great-great-grandfather, all the stories go down like 14 generations. They never left the island, but yet everyone thinks everybody's dead.
It's easier that way. People don't go looking for answers. Now I have to jump on something that is not exactly completely related, but it is related to Easter Island. And I find it very interesting that the day we record our podcast, I was reading about a bacteria called rapamycin, which is only found on Easter Island, and it is a longevity, life extending drug treatment that they make. They give it to people for organ transplant so your body doesn't reject. But what the side effect they found by testing on mice is they've lived 60% longer or something like that. So it's like,
that's what we want to give to a bunch of billionaires that are trying to destroy the planet right now. Let them live a little bit longer. Let them.
I know, right? But I just thought that was interesting to run across that. Here's something from that area where those statues are. So it's like, it makes you question.
You know what? Things that make you go,
Exactly. So that's all that was. Just a
And like I think I said it before we got on the air about Eric von Daniken. You cannot talk about Chariots of the Gods without talking about Eric von Daniken. And you can't talk about Eric von Daniken anymore without talking about Chariots of the Gods. It's the first book that I'm aware of that brought forth this question. Who were the ancient gods? And again, people get bogged down in, well, not my God. My God's not an alien. My God's not. Well, he's not talking about God, the Father of the universe, the creator of all things. He's talking about the gods that they worship, the Thors, the Zeuses, the Assyrian gods that I'm not even going to try to pronounce the name of those gods because I can never do it. Just the Egyptian gods. It's like, who were these creatures?
If you and I had never seen anything like it, we were in a time period where there was no space travel, and something came out of the clouds on fire and landed, and people came out. I would think they were a god, wouldn't you? But today we would call them an astronaut.
Especially if they had like a cutting tool or the ability to teach you how to cut a stone with something. A 900, let's say a 20-foot piece of stone, 20-foot piece of stone by 20-foot piece of stone that would weigh 40 tons. And then they're like, well, here, let me show you how to use this little, vibrator pin thing. You hit it on the side of the stone, it floats the stone, you just move it wherever you want. One guy can do this.
It's a possibility, right?
I mean, they're doing vibration tests now that can lift things up and they're moving them. And it's like, okay, how would you do that back the time of the pyramids, the original pyramids? I'm not talking about the Egyptian pyramids, because the pyramids, a lot of folks are starting to find out they're probably a lot older than any Egyptian empire that we know about. Initially, there was a guy who came down and looked at the Sphinx. He was a geologist, and it was an Egyptologist or some other ancient gods guy came down and said, there's something wrong with this. I can't put my finger on it. Could you come take a look at it? Guy looks at it and goes, yeah, that's water erosion. That's not wind. And everybody's looking at him like, what? He's like, yeah, the way that the water's running down. And he points out all these geological things. He's like, yeah, that thing's older than everything else in this valley. Everybody called him nuts. I mean, these people went after this guy. They tried to destroy his career. And he was just like, I'm not an Egyptologist. I'm not trying to poop on anybody's parade.
Yeah, it just...
I was asked what the erosion was on the rocks. I told you. Sorry, you don't like it, but that's the truth.
Yeah.
They tried for 10 years to try and destroy this guy's career. Other geologists finally started coming in because these other archaeologists that wanted to prove him wrong, we're going to get our own archaeologist people in there. And all these other guys are like looking around. No, yeah, that's water erosion. So after years of this guy getting pooped on, everybody's finally coming forward going, yeah, that thing's probably older than the Great Pyramid. It was already there.
Yeah, you had mentioned earlier about von Däniken, being attacked and everything. I mean, this was what he wrote this in the 60s, right? This is when this came out?
1968, I believe.
Wow. I mean, that took some guts to put something out that he knew he would be mocked and ridiculed.
Yeah.
Without anybody even stopping to think, what is this guy saying? Because they were threatened. And here's the thing. Von Däniken and ancient astronaut theorists to this day are still being attacked and trying to be discredited just for asking a question. And that's, I mean, hey, I'm willing to believe anything if you can prove it to me.
Yeah. Now I know Giorgio Tsoukalos, the guy who does the ancient astronauts, and I like to make fun of him.
He's a great meme.
He's a great meme. I love to make fun of the guy, but sometimes he and his people say something that just stops you in your tracks and go, wow, I never thought of that.
Exactly.
The only problem is that every one of them always go, it's always ancient astronauts. And I'm like, you know what? It's a ditch. Anybody can dig a ditch. I'm not buying that an ancient astronaut.
Well, I've always felt things on the show, and I love Ancient Aliens. Because
I love it. I watch it constantly.
It makes me question, and that's important to grow, as we talked earlier, is to question and go ahead and do your research and dig and see what you can find and see if your thought changes. But I do see a lot of things. Oh, like I said, a ditch, aliens. Come on now.
Yeah. You're doing quite the stretch there. You know,
especially when there's so much that leaves your jaw on the floor.
And the funny thing is, again, ancient astronauts, one of the first guys to point out the batteries that they found in Egypt. They're obviously batteries. They know they're batteries. They've got them to work. And all the ancient Egyptologists ignored it. well, here, what's this? Why do you have this thing? Well, that's stupid. You don't know what you're talking about. Oh, okay. But why do they exist? I thought they only found like a couple of them. They didn't just find a couple of them. They found warehouses of these things.
Well, thank you for saying that, because I was only aware of the Baghdad battery.
Yeah.
Wow. I didn't know there was a bunch more samples of this.
They found a lot of them, and big ones, small ones. I mean, they come in different sizes. And I sit there and think, what happened? The Indians, and I just saw something in this, not from the book, not from the book, but recently. India, about 1,000 years before Western civilization, and I don't know how many years before China ever created gunpowder, had guns that fired projectiles. They found writings in an art of war type book that's just on little slabs of wood that they flip over, and they had rules for fighting. Like, you're not allowed to shoot basically they were saying you're not allowed to use a gun in certain combat because it's unfair to the other side.
This is interesting.
It was basically the translation. It wasn't that, but it was
right.
Like,
I get what you're saying.
Use the fire stick, that shoots a projectile, and it's like, that's a gun.
So what they have is several thousand-year-old Geneva Convention.
Yeah, basically, like, you're not allowed to do this, but you can do this. If they're charging you and they only have bows and arrows, basically you can only fight with bows and arrows, kind of thing. And I was like, I feel cheated in history.
Yes.
Because I've never, up until about 4 days ago, I never even knew about this. And it was an Indian scholar. He is on Ancient Aliens every once in a while. But I found him on YouTube. I'll get you the link below. He's very interesting, and he just talks about ancient Hindu temples and ancient Hindu sites.
Cool. Very cool.
His first name is Raveen, Raveen, I believe. I'll get you his last name because it's not coming to me right now. But he's very interesting. It was a very interesting thought, and I was like, oh my God, nobody talks about this. How can you not? This is one of the biggest land masses on the planet. It's a subcontinent. Yeah. More people in it than anything. They've been there for
who knows how
God
long.
God in heaven only knows how long. But nobody talks about it. Nobody talks about who built the pyramids in a purely common sense way.
Right.
Yes. Okay. Slaves, you build the pyramids. Okay. I'll give you slaves. How do they move the blocks? They all say that they put big wood rollers under them and just manpower pushed them into place.
Sure.
They've tried to move stones that were a third the size of these with hundreds of people with rollers. They can't be done. The rollers sink the damn logs. I'm not buying it. I don't know how somebody built them. They're there.
I read something recently where some scientists had said they had solved the mystery of the pyramids and how they move these giant bricks.
Right.
And I read it, and then I had even more questions afterwards.
Right.
And it was what they were saying is they used water because they saw some hieroglyphs showing people pouring water on the sand to firm it up. And so what they did, and in their wisdom, was to make a miniature scale and see if they could drag this on the sand. Hey, that's great. So it worked like that. You saw that the resistance was lifted. Now let's do it for real. Get your 100-ton block, get your water, and do it. You have math. You should be able to figure this out. So why haven't you? If it's so damn cut and dry, you would have done it. And that's because if I could figure out how to do it, I would want to show everybody.
If you're doing it on a small scale, you should be able to upscale that and actually be able to do it. Because if you can't upscale it to, like you said, full-size block. And I don't want one of the little blocks. I don't want one
I want that 100-ton
big
sucker.
as my room. I want one of the really big ones. I want one of the lodestones. One that's
about an obelisk.
The freaking thing. Move one of those 400-ton ones. That's what I want to see you move. When you move one of those into place, and you have scientists, you have physicists now saying we could probably not build the pyramids now. Like, physically, it'd be really hard.
Yeah.
Like, almost impossible. They don't know how they did it. They don't know how they built them. They have no idea because they don't have any blueprints. They didn't have blueprints back then.
Yeah. So I want to propose something here. So you've got for the past 2,000 years of our current recorded history, people have marveled at the pyramids because they've been there much longer.
Right.
And it's always been a question, how are they built and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Given where we're at as a society and technology and science and the ability to figure things out, the ability we have to launch people into space to other planets, all the math and science and physics that's involved in that, and we can't figure out how to build a block, and yet you're going to say it was people,
right?
Then you should be able to figure that out. I'm just saying.
Right. If you're an archaeologist telling me that 10,000 people built the pyramids in 10 years or however long it was for Khufu, I think it was Khufu.
Yeah, I just want to see one block moved. You don't even have to build one.
I want to see you guys just build a small one. Just build a small one. The way that you say they were built, I just want to see you build a small one.
Yeah.
That's all.
Let's test it out. And that's just it. We're here
for the Queen's chambers. You have to have all the tubes. You have to all the empty spaces in that pyramid too. Can't be solid.
Right. It has to be done that way.
Jenga. No,
they should be able to figure that out. And I don't think that's too much to ask. And that's all we're doing is we're asking questions.
But if you ask it, you're a conspiracy theorist. And all I want to know is,
among other things,
you say that you can do it, then go do it.
Yeah.
There's other things he brings up. There's the image in the book. The images aren't that clear,
right?
But he brings up some very interesting places and iconography.
Yeah, there's several places in the world, and I hate that I've waited this long in my life to start studying this because growing up in the American school systems, we are focused on our little corner of the world, and we don't study all the other stuff. And man, we missed a lot.
Yeah,
but there's several sites throughout the world that will come up anytime you want to talk about ancient astronaut theory.
And this is one of them. It is in Copan. It was in a temple in Copan. And the question is, could primitive man's imagination have come up with a king sitting in a rocket ship? And if you look at the image,
it's a really
remarkable.
Cool image.
It really is remarkably like a modern astronaut in his rocket. He's sitting. He's got an air tube up his nose.
Yep.
You can see him almost like a rocket sled, where he's in the seat. That's a rocket. That's a space capsule of some sort. That's some kind of moving vehicle. No matter how you slice it, you talk about ancient times. And where did they come up with that?
And we're not the only, they're not the only ones who look at this and say, "Hey, that's an astronaut." When you see these people on TV, what I saw when I see this image of the reclining person and everything, I always think of Aliens, the movie, and see the engineers. So Geiger himself obviously had seen something of this.
Yeah. The Tokapi Palace maps, better known as the Piri Reis maps.
This is a really cool find.
They were copies of copies of copies, where an Admiral Piri Reis got a copy of them. Now, what the Piri Reis maps are the Antarctic mapped out. Yeah. Antarctica mapped out. Now, not just mapped out, folks. They show mountain ranges. They show forests. They show jungles. They have pictures of animals on some of the maps, of what types of animals they were. Everybody's like, oh, gazelles, elephants, freaking woolly mammoths, whatever. And everybody thought these were BS. Everybody for 100 years thought it's freaking ice down there. What do they know? Then they started doing LIDAR. They started doing ground penetrating radar. They started doing overhead shots with the spy satellites again. Guess what? Those freaking maps are almost exact.
Yeah.
Exact. Also they have mountain ranges that are shaped very similar to pyramids.
Yeah, there's pyramids all over the world, folks, just not the three in Egypt.
And And the crazy thing is, when you see some of them, I think I sent you one from Thailand. They were near Thailand. Mountain range. They're like 6 or 7 mountains.
I've seen that site. Yeah.
They are freaking pyramids, folks. There's no natural mountain that has 4 equal sides going to a point. Doesn't happen in nature. Just doesn't happen. Everybody's ignored it. Like, no, there's nothing there. Then you go to the top of those pyramids in I think it's Thailand someplace, or in one of the islands there. And on top of those islands, or on top of those pyramids, they have places that look like Stonehenge. Almost exactly like Stonehenge, mapped out the whole 9 yards. These are thousands of years difference, thousands of miles apart, same exact layout. But I'm the conspiracy theorist that's just asking the question,
yeah,
well, how? How does that happen? Some people will say, oh, it's a universal memory that all people have. That's like it's almost like mass hallucination. I don't believe it's mass hallucination. That's BS. I'll never believe in it.
No.
So this kind of sounds like the easy out. Like, everybody has these same thoughts because it's a primitive, primal memory. Primal memory doesn't explain laying out maps to the stars and only certain star systems.
Yeah.
There's
a lot of research right now into genetic memory, where people actually pass down trauma through generations and stuff, but they're not passing down star maps. I mean, I get it that your body is registering, because there's a whole nother thing there when we start going looking at cells and mitochondria, and good Lord, it's too much to be an accident.
And my big question, this is always been my big takeaway from Chariots of the Gods, and a good question that I think Eric von Daniken has asked in one of his other books. I'm not a big fan of Darwinism. I've never been a big fan of Darwinism. Darwin was, in my personal opinion, totally insane. He just hated his parents because his parents were religious. They were way weird, like beat him in the head if he questioned anything kind of religion, and he just went the extreme opposite. And I think a lot of his theories were based on his hatred for his parents and their belief. That's my opinion. I could be wrong. If you want to believe in Darwinism, you guys go right ahead. The reason I say I don't believe that is there are no missing links. Mankind, they always show the monkey, evolving into man. But yet there's a huge gap in time and missing links. There's nothing that transitions the ape type creature to what we are today. And most animals don't have that. Like, if you try to figure out where a deer came from, and you go genetically and you mark, there's none of that there either. Something's amiss. But when you bring that up, you're crazy. You're a religious fanatic. You're this or that. I'm none of these things. Well, I might be crazy, but there's not one of these things. I just am asking, okay, where are all the missing links at?
I think that's a valid question. And that's one of the things that a lot of people tend to get hung up on. They're like, oh my God, you can't be asking this. It's
heresy.
It is. It comes off as heresy and blasphemy and stuff like that. But then you realize you're only doing that to one set of religion. What about all these others who have the same story? At what point something in here has got to have some truth?
At least ask.
Just ask. There's nothing wrong with asking.
All I want is an answer, and I want an honest answer. I would have more respect for most archaeologists and most scientists if they were more like Kaku.
I know who you're trying to say.
Kaku.
Yeah.
Give me the last name.
I can't remember.
I always want to call him Nico Pichu, but that's not right.
No.
Kaku Pichu? Kaku.
Stop.
I'm gonna just destroy the man's name. If they were more like him, whenever you listen to him, you see one of his documentaries, and I'll get his name down there too, folks, because I'm terrible with names. I'll be honest with you. But after he tells you, well, this is what, the cells are doing. This is what time does. This is what, space and relative. This is what, time travel is. And then at the end of everything, he always says, but we could always be wrong. We may have all that math could be wrong. We don't know. We're taking our best guess. And if every scientist, every archaeologist came out and went, this is Egypt, this is how it was built, this, but I could be completely wrong.
Well, yeah, that's
there may be one thing that I'm missing, and if I find that one thing, it could change all of history and the way we look at it. And then I'll tell you. But nobody ever wants to do that. They want
to, and that's the scientific method, is to have your question,
right?
Test your ideas. What do you think it is? If we can just segue real quick to Skinwalker Ranch, where they have an anomaly in the air, and they're like, okay, what do we do? Travis Taylor, it's like, I'm going to shoot a rocket at it.
Yeah,
it makes sense. I know it's funny. We laugh about it all the time, but he's now he's going to send something up in that space. Yeah. It's taking what you know that something's going on and then testing it. That's why when they say definitively the pyramids were built this way, then do it, test it. Let's put the scientific, instead of just being so. a lot of scientists like to scream about religion or whatever, but it's like, guys, you're acting the same way. I'm just saying.
Exactly. Yeah. They want to sit there and tell you God doesn't exist. Now, whatever God it is, they don't care. God doesn't exist. Okay, well, when I go out and I'm at night and I'm looking up in the stars, or I see the trees and I hear the birds, or what, I look at nature and I'm like, this isn't an accident. For me, I look at this and say, this is not an accident.
It's hard to comprehend it's an accident. I'll tell you that. It could be. But I need to see it.
It would be more difficult for me to believe. But then they want you to go, well, there's no way a God could create the universe in 7 days, or a God could create the universe from a cherry blossom. A God could not do this. God could not. Whatever, universal truth that you think is in your heart, they want to tell you you're wrong. But then they look at you in the same breath and say, there was a super teeny tiny super negative micro atom that exploded and made everything.
Yeah, where'd it come from?
It's called the Big Bang Theory. And I sit there and go, that's the biggest load of I've ever heard in my life. I can more easily believe that there's a 12 God quorum that all sit around and went, let's create a universe. Okay, let's go. And went out and did it. Then I can believe that a super micro dot exploded and created the universe as we know it. That's me. That's that's me simplifying it as easy as I can.
Yeah, it's hard.
I could be wrong, folks.
You could. You could. It's the problem with saying anything definitively, without having tested it scientifically, and you always have to leave an opening, and being curious is what leads you and I on this search. I've always been curious about it, and this book was kind of, I just read the book this year.
Really?
I just saw the documentary this year. I've known of him for the years, but I've kind of really haven't dabbled in the ancient astronaut theory until Ancient Aliens came on. And what it did for me in reading this book really changed the way I look at everything. I used to be that hardcore, all religion is bull.
Right.
But once I read read Chariots of the Gods and some other, and seeing these things, it starts bringing your mind. It's like, well, if they're not gods and if they're astronauts, this whole story makes sense. Something might have actually happened. So now I am forced to question my entire upbringing and religious beliefs and everything, and start bringing all of that back and looking for the truth, as we say.
Yeah. And the good thing about Van Doniken in Chariots of the Gods, I highly recommend it.
Absolutely.
He talks about ancient aliens, and he also brings up interdimensional travel. And he also brings up, could it be time travel? Could all of these ancient aliens not actually be aliens, but be from another time on our planet? Which is really mind-boggling, because then you're like, okay, we figured out time travel at some point. See, I'm the smart-ass time traveler that would go back in time and leave a Timex in one of those vaults in a pyramid. I would leave, like, I'd write out my name, Dave Mancos was here, like, on the wall.
For a good time call.
So when these guys open up that chamber, there's my name.
No, I would put a sign that says, "We're trying to reach you about your car warranty."
Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that time traveler. That's the kind of crap that I would do. I'd put a hammer where I knew that they were going to find it, 40,000 years from now.
Oh, that would be awesome.
They're like, awesome. How did that hammer get here? That's crazy. It's something like I would just be that guy. Like, Dave, you're not supposed to do that stuff. Yeah, but it's going to be funny. It's going to be funny in 1980 when they open up that chamber. It's going to be great. Trust me, it's going to be hysterical. I'd be that guy. I'm sorry. I would be that smart ass time traveler.
One of the other things that he brings up, and this has always been a favorite of mine, was the Nazca lines in South America.
Oh, the Nazca lines, yeah.
If you folks, I'll put links and some pictures up on neverworldpodcast.com. I think this is our website. I don't remember. Jeez,
we're in the middle of putting everything together. So
we're putting it all together. But we'll have links available for you. And but with these lines, if you look at them, it is clear to me that these had to be designed to be seen from above.
Right.
But by something flying over. And then you look, and folks, go take a map, go pull up Waze or Google Maps and go to your local airport and take a look at the way it's laid out. Right. Take a look at that, and then take a look at the Nazca lines and tell me you don't see a damn airport. I mean, it's there.
There's also a thing about the Nazca lines. If I remember correctly, I'd seen an image of the plateau that it was on, and it's not a natural plateau. A lot of scientists don't think that's natural flat. They think it was flattened, and then that happened on it. And if that's the truth, who did that? Because as far as they can tell, there weren't that many people ever living in that area.
Yeah,
at any one time.
When you see this picture, it is clear that the top of this mountain has been shaved off, and it's
crazy.
That?
It's crazy.
It wasn't a glacier, and I mean, come on.
There was no glacier.
I don't know what would have shaved that mountain off.
Because I think they've actually done some research, and they don't think the actual glacier movement from the last ice age got that far south or that far.
Even if it did, it acted like a tornado and just shaved off the middle in between a range, which makes no sense when you see this picture.
It's absolutely insane.
It's without explanation.
The Nazca lines are absolutely insane. They really are. When you look at them, you're like, that's, even when I was like a little kid reading the book for the first time, I saw those pictures. And I thought, wow, that looks like an airport. And to me, that's an airport.
It does look like an airport.
Spaceport or something.
Yeah, a spaceport. It had to be. I mean, and yes, I know that we are looking at this through eyes that have seen an airport and stuff like that, but that's why we make that connection, because it's laid out that way. And it's like, well, why do we lay an airport and runways out the way that we do? And then we look at this from thousands of years ago laid out the same way. It's like, what the hell is this? And you look at the images that they put, there's animals, there's birds, it's weird. It's weird to me.
I think you had texted me about that at one point, and I wrote back something to the effect of, to me, what the animals represent are either a specific alien species, a shipping company of some sort, or I forgot what my third one was, like the type of ship that parked there.
Right.
Like, that's the first thing off the top of my head. Like, if I were going to not segregate, but if I was going to block it off and go, okay, you monkey people with the banana export company, you have to park over here by the monkey where the big monkey shape's at. That's where your ship lands. Hey, cat people that are bringing in all the cat fodder, that you got to park over there where the big cat heads are. Okay, great, thanks. Yeah. Or alien species or shipping company, whatever hey, monkey company, you're over here. Snake company, you're over there. They may all have been one alien race, or they may have been several, and that's why they had it broke up. Like, everybody was getting something off of this planet.
Well, and if you look at the birds, what they're calling birds, some look like spaceships and satellites.
Yeah.
So it's beyond explanation.
They have the one really big bird that looks like a phoenix.
Yeah.
When you have the American Indians or the native tribes explain what a phoenix is or a thunderbird is,
mm-hmm.
and then you see them have the thunderbird on some of their blankets or
right.
ancient paintings, on the ground, they look just like the thing on the ground in Nazca. It's to quote Travis, it's crazy.
It is. It is. Well, it also shows that here we are right now. We started talking about Egypt, and now we're down in Peru, South America, other side of the world, same type of stuff. And you start to see the connections, as you mentioned, between the Native Americans and this area with their imagery. The same with the Aztecs, the Incas, and the Mayans, with Native America, and looking into India and around the world. It shows that we were much more connected at one point, somehow. So it just brings up questions, man.
When we weren't supposed to be that connected, and yet there's a whole lot of similarities between the constructions of a lot of these sites.
Yeah.
That's the kind of thing that I want to know about. Like, I'm not telling all the ancient archaeologists that they're completely 100% wrong, but when you jump on somebody for having a different opinion, or even asking the question, you're going, hey, and I say the same thing about the ancient alien people too.
Mm-hmm.
They're so wound up in that everything was an ancient alien, that mankind could have never built this. I got to call foul. Maybe they did build the pyramids. Maybe
just
it really
was.
But here's my question. When did they build the pyramids? Because that stuff is a lot older than you think it is, I believe.
I believe that as well.
Think that they were there before the last ice age, which means it's a prehistoric man, at least to our history, that built those. Okay, we have that. What kind of tech did they use to build that with? Was it so simple that we can't figure it out? Was it actually a vibration of some sort that it might have been the size of a tuning fork? We don't know. Yeah. That's so simple that whenever we do find it out, we're going to be like, how did we miss that? How many times have you been doing a computer program and you're trying to figure something out?
Yeah.
You can't figure it out. You can't. You're like, this is a piece of freaking garbage. And you hit the button and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. And you're like, oh. Well, that was easy.
That worked. That was easy.
I was putting in too many commands.
I mean, we really may not have found the easy way of doing it. It's quite possible. But,
So I get just as mad as the ancient alien people saying everything was ancient aliens as I do with scientists saying, you don't know the science, you're a fool. And, how dare you question me because I have 5 degrees behind my name. And I can tell you right now, I've come up with ideas watching shows, especially like the Skinwalker Ranch and Ancient Aliens, or I'll watch Michu Kichu, whatever his name is. And he'll say something and I'll look over and I'll say, well, I wonder why they haven't thought of this, or this. This is my theory, this, or this. And then one of the scientists that they're talking to will come up and say, well, I have this theory. And it's the same thing that I just said 2 minutes before. And I just look at my old lady, I'm like, and I don't even have a degree. I don't even have the super scientific degree that this guy's got, and I came up with that already.
Right.
It's just like you just work things out in your head. If you're an engineer, you work things out like that. As an artist, I look at something and try and figure out how to do something. Some of the ancient relics, the past that has left behind, that they don't even know how old they are, is mind-boggling. And we have a lot of questions for this book. We have a lot of questions for Eric von Daniken, and no answers. There's no easy answer. I mean, I could tell you that, yes, it was ancient aliens. It's a time traveler. It's another dimensional being coming through a wormhole on, September 20th, 1921. And that's when they got here. I don't know. I would be just as full of BS as some other folks. I'm going to try to never say that. What I will say is I have questions. I have my own theories, and I can tell you what my belief system is as far as those go. Why I believe something, or why I tend to lean towards something, but I'm always open to change my mind. if you can prove that a guy my size can move a 20-ton brick with a tuning fork, I would be like, shit, they did build that in a week. Got it. I get it.
I get it. I pride myself on the same is if I am open to what you're suggesting, but I might need some convincing. And if you convince me that my belief system for the past 52 years was completely wrong and I'm full of shit, then guess what? I'm changing my belief system because you just proved it to me. So let's do it.
I may not like it.
Yeah.
But I'll do it because holy cow.
The truth is what's important.
2 + 2 always equals 4. No matter what new math is telling you, kids, 2 + 2 is always 4. There is the quote in here that I had read to you earlier. Let me see if I can find it again about Eric von Daniken. And oh no, I had it written down on my notes. I'm sorry, I'm getting my highlights mixed up. Eric von Daniken in this book is the first person that I'm aware of that asked, was God an astronaut? I reworded it a little bit because I think the better wording would have been, were the gods astronauts? Because again, I think people get dragged down.
They get wrapped up in their singular.
They instantly think of their own God, and you're a heretic. And that's not what he's asking. What he's asking is, was Thor a god / alien? Was Zeus a god / alien? Were the angels that are in the Bible or whatever holy text is out there, were they actually aliens or a type of time traveler or other dimensional being that people could recognize as different, but basically man?
Yeah.
That's all he's asking is, and if that is true, what then? How much does that change our history? How much would that change your religious belief in a God? For me, it just makes my faith that much stronger. But that's me. I know some people would absolutely freak out if they found out there were aliens on other planets. I, on the other hand, would be like, wow, that's really cool. Hope they don't come here and just wipe us out to the single man.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully they're friendly and actually want to stop us from killing each other. That'd be great.
That would be nice. That would be awesome. That would be awesome.
Thumbs up on that one, happy alien.
I believe everybody should know the truth. Let's find out, and that's what we're after.
We landed on the moon in 69. Was it 1969, I believe?
Yeah.
And within a matter of months, we had our first satellite flying past Mars, taking pictures of Mars. Now, some people say the tech didn't exist. There's no way we could do it. Some people honestly believe we've never shot a rocket into space.
Yes, we have.
The whole time watching a damn rocket shoot into space and see the satellite pictures. And now I think we shot a lot more rockets into space, but this is another story. Completely another story about moon bases and Martian
We will get to those.
We'll get to that. But when you have one company from Elon Musk shot up over 200 satellites for his network.
For Skylink, I think it's called.
Yeah, I got to start asking questions. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying Elon Musk or the governments of the world are up to something, but it smells kind of fishy.
It's a question. It's one worth taking a look at.
But it's a rocket, and it's the technology. From that point in time, from 1968, 69, we got to the moon. A matter of months, we got to Mars. In a matter of years, they were launching Voyager 1 and 2 to go out of our solar system, and they're still getting feedback from those ships. Who's the ancient aliens? If that thing makes a space route and comes back in a big circle, we're going to have Star Trek the Motion Picture all over again, possibly. That's all I'm saying.
In some places, our satellites may be viewed as gods or...
Exactly. Exactly.
It's especially how far it's traveled. We don't know what's out there. We don't know what's seen us. Just because we haven't seen it doesn't mean we haven't been seen.
Right.
So I think that is definitely important. The thing about the space travel, you talk about the 60s, that was the technology.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we've kind of, yes, there's still been things going on, but man, we're like, no, we're not going back to the moon. We'll be there in about 2025. They're going to put some people on there, but why did we wait so long? Another podcast.
Why did the Earth vibrate or why did the moon vibrate for 3 hours after they crashed a rocket on it? Another podcast. But these are questions that I have. I have theories of what's going on, and you'll all think I'm crazy, which is fine. It's absolutely fine to think I'm crazy. But whenever I give you my opinion, you may change your mind and start thinking, why? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm here to do, folks, is ask questions and wonder why. And I think that's why Scott's here.
It is. And that's why we have started this podcast. Dave, do you have anything else from Von Däniken that you wanted to address?
I have so much from Von Däniken that I want to address, but we only have so much time in this podcast.
We will do that in another follow-up.
My thinking is that we will have more podcasts, and Von Däniken will show up way more than we have anticipated at this point. Just thinking about all the things we just said in the last 3 minutes.
Yes.
He's going to come up a lot.
We can't talk about this without talking about him because he's the one who basically lit the fire.
Right. He's the first one that I'm aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. He's lit a fire in me. So it's like, okay, hey, let's go. It's going to happen. So I would like to thank everybody for jumping in on our new podcast venture. This is the second episode. Hope you enjoyed the Skunk Ape episode and interview. And we're working out some kinks and trying to figure out exactly how this is going to lay out and how it's going to play. So bear with us. Please drop us a line, hit subscribe. Tell us what you want to hear about. Did you run across something that you think is really cool that, hey, Dave and Scott might like this or something like it? Send it to us. We would love to interact with you, and we expect to have at least 2 episodes a month to start. So
that's the goal.
So bear with us as we get this sucker rolling, and I hope you guys are along for the ride because this is exciting stuff.
Yes. I want to say thank you. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe button. Share us, highlight, copy, share us to your favorite social media sites. I don't mind being shared around. I'm a tramp that way.
Absolutely.
I fully admit it. But we have no answers, but we have a lot of questions, and we're going to try and get answers. How's that?
Yeah.
I can find something that proves something wrong or proves something right. Even if it proves me wrong in my own personal belief system, I'm going to share it. Especially if I'm like, oh crap, I didn't know that. I'm going to share it. Like the Easter Island. I had always thought those people, I had always been taught, and I'm still seeing it in books. Mm-hmm. All the islanders were killed. No, they weren't. They're still there.
Yeah.
Somebody in history is lying. Why? That's the bigger question. Why are history buffs, history teachers, history people lying to you? Got to be a reason.
There is.
There's your conspiracy theory.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So thanks again for joining myself, Scott, and Dave. Was somewhere on the screen. I'll point everywhere. Like I said, no pointing because we don't know where everybody's going to lay out. So thanks again. And if we have not been abducted, we will be back. Thanks.
Yes, sir.